Hi guys, it's Aaron. Today is Friday, March 1st, 2013, and you're watching 5 Awesome Musicians. Today on the University of Illinois campus is unofficial, which is unofficial St. Patrick's Day, so in honor of unofficial, I'm wearing my green tie, because I had to teach today, as well as, wait for it, look, green socks. The green socks were actually a Hanukkah Christmas present from Andre, so thank you, Andre, for that. As you can see today, I'm filming my video in my office, the office that I share at the Krannert Center. I share it with the other orchestra TAs and choral TAs, and this is where the magic happens. I'll show you around, and there's lots of scores and books and things. And over here, wait, let's see, there's a piano over here. It's kind of out of tune, but what are you gonna do? I've got my handy dandy list here of things we need to cover this week. First of all, Nick Humbles. Thank you, Nick Humbles, for coming on. Nick Humbles, I love Nick Humbles. And I had no idea you played all those instruments. Good for you, Nick. So, Chris and Nick, the strangest mishap that's happened to me on stage. Well, when I was a senior in high school, I was playing Stille Nacht, which is Silent Night, but the Mannheim Steamroller version. And it starts off with cello and piano duet, and then the orchestra comes in afterwards. And it was just some stupid little solo, and I have no idea why, but it was in the concert, and I started playing, and then I started to get the bow shakes. Like I was playing just like on the bow, and then it started to my bow started to shake. And it was bizarre. I had no idea. It never happened before, and I was terrified. And I think the people in the first couple rows could hear it, the sound, but I don't know if I don't think everyone else could. I don't know, but it was terrifying, and it was the first time that I had really ever gotten nervous, and that I was aware of that I could, that could happen. And it was terrifying, and I felt awful, and it was really eye-opening. But I'm glad that it happened when I was younger, because then, when other more important performances came up and the bow shakes would start, I knew how to fix it and how to not have the shakes. So it was really terrifying to go through at the beginning, but I'm glad it happened on something that wasn't as important. It wasn't a concerto. It was Mannheim Steamroller Silent Night. While conducting, I think the weirdest mishap was I was actually in a pit, and I was conducting The Music Man, and Andre was playing in the pit. It was the beginning of the show. It was right after the opening, the sort of rap that the train passengers do. It was right before I Was Stubborn, and there was this 2-bar vamp that the whole orchestra played, and my cue to go on was the curtain would come up and the lights would go up, and then the chorus, we'd play our 4-bar intro, and then the chorus would sing and would come in. And for whatever reason this night, I always waited for the lights to go up, because that's when I knew I could see everyone and we were all ready to go. But this performance, for some reason, the curtain went up, and this was usually my cue for the last time through the vamp, but I didn't give my hand because the lights weren't on yet, but the brass players on that side saw the curtain go up, and they went ahead even though the lights weren't up, and I didn't give the cue. So then I did give the cue, but the whole orchestra was a bar apart for 6 bars, and the chorus had no idea when to come in, so some of them went with the brass players because they're the loudest, but some of them went with me. And it was about 10 bars or 15 seconds of really awkwardness, but somehow we got on, and it was another terrifying experience. Those were the strangest mishaps. Andre, in response to your video, I thought you had a lot of good things to say, and I liked the passage from the book you read. You're definitely right. We all go through creative slumps at one point, and I think because being creative, even if it comes more naturally to you than others, it takes a lot out of you. And then I think if you're always trying to be creative at once, because it just you have to exert so much energy, it's really exhausting, and then you kind of go through periods where you're just mentally and physically taxed out, and you go through slumps, and you're absolutely right. Everyone goes through those at various points. And it was funny that you mentioned Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, because we're studying Beethoven in my conducting class, and Beethoven, as my professor describes it, Beethoven's life sucked and then got worse. In a way, the circumstances around you, and when you have, in his case, a life that was never so good, and he wasn't that nice of a person, and he lived in about 80 different apartments and always got kicked out, and then he lost his hearing on top of that. I mean, I guess in that way he was inspired to write this great music. He really had a very bad life. It really wasn't good, and I think that in a way he was inspired to, make something beautiful out of his existence. Then I also think you'd mentioned something about how creative is scary, and it's tough to put yourself out there, and that brings me to thinking of a story about Brahms. Brahms came after Beethoven, and he had written a lot of symphonies, but Beethoven really changed the form of the symphony in his lifetime, and because of that, Brahms was so scared of writing his first symphony because he thought that he would never be as good as Beethoven, and he'd always live in his shadow. And it took about 40-50 years of Brahms' life before he wrote and published his first symphony. And even his first symphony, he kept in a drawer for 20 years because he wasn't ready and never thought it would be as good as Beethoven's symphonies. And he always sort of lived in Beethoven's shadow. Never actually, they never coexisted or lived at the same time. Oh, is that right? 18. I need to look that up. Hold on. Yeah, that's right. Phew! Okay. Yeah, because they never coexisted, but he was still so afraid of living in another symphonist's shadow that it took him years before he published his first symphony. And he ended up with 4 great symphonies, amazing symphonies. But yeah, I think creativity, it's extremely important, but it's a hard subject to talk about because it's a very personal thing. It's very different, and everyone expresses their creativity in very different ways. Whenever I'm in a creative slump, I like to watch a TED Talk. And there's this wonderful talk that I've posted on Facebook years ago by Sir Ken Robinson, who's a British humanitarian and philosopher and educator, and he talks about schools and creativity. And the title of his video is called "Do Schools Kill Creativity?" And I think he has a lot of interesting points to bring up. But the stories he tells really are quite inspiring, and he also wrote a book called The Element, which is basically a book of various people's stories about how they've been inspired to do the great things that they've done. So Sir Ken Robinson is his name, and if you look below on the YouTube video, I will put the link to his video. Today's button-down shirt of the week is it's just a white shirt, but there's some stripes in it. But today's really more about the tie, because it's unofficial. Please, everyone, make good choices tonight, and don't get too crazy. Please live. I'm finally fulfilling one of my challenges, which is to make some music with another musician, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a preview at the end of this video, and that's also this week's song of the week, and it's The Swan by Camille Saint-Saëns, and it's a movement from his larger orchestral work called Carnival of the Animals. Andre and I collaborated on this, and I'll give you a little post the bonus video link below. So I'm going to wrap it up. That's all for me today. Have a wonderful weekend. And can you believe we're in March already? Incredible. So have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week. And thanks for watching 5 Awesome Musicians.